everyone, Shelby here. Welcome back to A Little Literary Love. I'm glad y'all are with me today. Today's video is going to be my February mid-month wrap-up. So these are going to be all the books that I read in the latter half of February. I have, I believe, 6 books to talk about. I did end up reading a St. Martin's Press book as well, but I will be refraining from talking about that one as of right now. I may add it in at a later date if this boycott resolves. If you're unfamiliar with this boycott, I will leave a link down below to the website for this boycott, but basically it's just a marketing boycott of any book published by St. Martin's Press or Umbrella. Like, they have different companies underneath them, so any of those companies as well. It doesn't mean that you can't buy these books, because I still bought them. I'm still reading them, but I am refraining from talking about them on any of my platforms or showing any of their covers. I'm just trying to refrain from giving any kind of like marketing or talking about them at all. So that being said, without that one, I believe I have 6 books to talk about, so I'm going to try to go through these pretty quickly. I do have my kids out playing while I'm trying to film this video, so we'll see how this goes. But starting off, first book that I read in the latter half of February is going to be Petty Cupid by Sarah Blue. This is a like fantasy romance. This is a novella. This is about a Cupid named Love, and she is wanting to find some love for herself for Valentine's Day. There is this big ball that happens for all Cupids. It's kind of like their like New Year's, their big holiday that they celebrate, of course, because they're Cupids, and she wants to make her ex jealous. Her ex recently like cheated on her and broke up with her. So she's wanting to find somebody else to bring to this ball, but only Cupids ever go, and all the Cupids already have dates with each other. So then she's trying to go to other magical creatures and try to find a date amongst others. So then she runs into this Reaper that does not like her ex and is very attracted to her, and he decides to go with her to this ball, and they have this very quick and cute and steamy romance. So I give this one 4 stars. I really like this one. I just thought this couple was very cute, and like I said, it's very steamy, very great for a quick novella type read. It gave me just everything that I wanted in a novella. Very insta-lust, which I'm usually not the biggest fan of. It's a little bit better than like insta-love. I felt like there was at least a little bit of a development for it to not be insta-love, but it is still a little insta-love, but I did enjoy it. Then I have another like Valentine's Day read. I have Stupid Cupid by Maeve Black. This is another like fantasy paranormal romance. This, I believe you can read this one and Dear Santa Claus like either way, but I think it's recommended to read this one second. So this is about Valentine, another Cupid. He is really great at his job at finding love for other people, but he does not believe in love himself, and he ends up going to this paranormal creature BDSM club, and he runs into Pyro, who is a like a dragon creature of sorts, and they hit it off really well, and Valentine is starting to have feelings for Pyro, and so this scares him and he runs away, only to months later have to run into him again because both of their siblings, who were the main characters in the first book, are getting married. So they're having to work together for this for the marriage, and because their siblings want them to work out their differences and whatnot. So I ended up giving this one 3.5 stars. I wanted to like this one a lot more than I did because I really loved Dear Santa Claus. I read that in December and absolutely fell in love with it. I just felt like this story was a bit all over the place. I really like this author's like writing style and voice, so I do want to read more from her whenever she does decide to put more books or novellas out. But I feel like this needed to go through a lot more development and editing. It just felt like we went from so many different components smashed together in this more novella type book, because it's pretty short. And it just felt very disconnected and jarring. I also didn't quite understand Valentine's character motive, and why he doesn't really believe in love and doesn't like love. It doesn't really make any sense to me. So him like running away and then Pyro like pining after him and trying to get him back, it just felt overly dramatic when it didn't need to be. And then, like I said, I just felt like this needed a bit more editing. So I gave it 3.5 stars. Then I read Hell House by Dakota Wilde. This is the first book in her Kildale, I think is what it's called, Kildale Academy. I could be wrong on that one. This is a paranormal romance. I did not realize that going into it when I picked this one up. This is like, I just thought this was going to be a reverse harem college romance, because it is about these two girls who are roommates. They're freshmen on this academy, like college, and then their room catches fire, and the only rooms left in this entire college are in this fraternity known as the Hell House. And you find out that things happen to lure them there, because they're supposed to be a part of this thing. There's these guys that were initiated into this fraternity that are embodied by the demons that are the 7 deadly sins. So I thought this was a pretty interesting concept, but I just feel like the execution may have not been quite there. So this isn't a straight like one female character in their romance. There's a lot of different stuff going on in this one. We end up having points of views from both females, and I believe all, if not most, of the 7 guys that are supposed to be the 7 deadly sins. There's a lot of different POVs going on in this book, so it was got a little bit confusing and convoluted, I felt like, with that. So I ended up giving this one 3 stars. The other thing that I felt like I said, I thought this was an interesting premise, and I was still intrigued to kind of figure out what was going on. So I did read all the way through, but when you got to about 70% in, I got really bored. Like really bored, and that's when you're starting to finally figure some stuff out. The other thing that I thought was a little bit jarring for me is we have all of this like sexual tension between both girls and various guys of the group, and then we don't get any kind of steamy scenes until like we hit the 90-95% mark, and then we have a foursome group scene. Like, it just felt really weird that we go from nothing, and then the first time that one of the girls is actually going to have sex with some guy, she ends up having sex with 3 guys at once. It just didn't feel right. I don't know, I didn't really care for that. So I don't think I will be continuing on with this series, but I may give this author another chance with some other type of book, because I thought the idea was pretty cool. I just feel like, I don't know, the execution was maybe not there. Then I read Fleeing Fate by Sabrina Day. This is an Omegaverse story. This is about this girl, and her brother live with their father in this like secluded area. They've never met outsiders before, but their father is very abusive towards them. And he keeps like shock collars on them, and there's like a fence around their property so that they can't escape. And her brother ends up attacking their father to protect her, and he ends up shifting into a wolf. So this is very jarring, and she ends up hurting her father and escaping in their truck with her brother to the outside world to try to get help for him to figure out what is going on. So they run into this sheriff at this town, and he kind of starts explaining things to her about alphas and omegas and what their world is like, and that shifters are a very minuscule small percentage percentage of people that can do that. So he sets them up, introduces them to this pact to try to help her brother, and in doing so she presents as an Omega, and they want to help her but also kind of keep her with them and hopefully join their pack. This was so disappointing for me. I gave this 1 star. I did not even get all the way through it. I got to a part in this book that sickened me. I was very hyped to read this book because, number one, it's an Omegaverse, and I really, really enjoy Omegaverse stories. It's been hard finding a really good one. Number 2, this is written by a Black author and features a Black heroine as the female main character, and I love seeing that in an Omegaverse story. I don't see that at all. And I was really intrigued by like the first half of this book. It pulled me in. I couldn't put it down. I was reading it and I was loving it. But then we get to a part, number 1, once they meet other people, like her sole like character motivation is to keep her and her brother safe, and because she's the older sibling, her brother's younger than her, is to keep her brother safe and to find people to help him. And then her plan was to just escape with him and go off on their own and be their own independent, by themselves. And then once they find people and there's an alpha that helps her brother shift back into human, we basically don't see her brother like at all the rest of the book. He just like disappears and goes away, and that didn't make any sense to me, that we shifted that so much, that he was such a huge component of her character, and then he's just like, we have no idea where he just goes off with these other alphas because he wants to learn more about being an alpha. It just did not make any sense to me. Number 2, and this is going to be very spoilery, so if you do want to read this book, you might want to skip ahead, but this is a big reason why I had to stop reading, and that is going to be, they have a scene where one of the alphas, like the main alpha of this pack, has sex with her, but to me it was very much a non-consensual act because number 1, throughout meeting all these alphas, she realizes that once they tell her to do something, she has to, like, it's a biological impulse. She just can't say no. So he's like cleaning her up, and he gives her this like choice because he's getting in the shower, and he gives her a choice like, hey, you can get in with me and you know what's going to happen. We're going to have sex, or you can walk away. I'm like, okay, cool. But then once he gets in the shower, he commands her, get in here with me. So that completely takes away her choice in the matter whatsoever, because she just, biologically, she cannot say no to him. And then number 2, it is very traumatic for her because he's very rough with her during this sex scene and ends up putting his hands on her neck, which absolutely triggers her because I mentioned before that her father kept a shock collar on her, and so then she goes into this like full-blown panic attack, and he just like keeps having sex, and that whole bit made me sick to my stomach, and I couldn't handle it. And I don't like that type of thing happening from my main male protagonist that she is supposed to end up with and fall in love with. And it just rubs me the wrong way, and I really didn't want to continue and see this guy redeem himself. I was like, no, I was done. I mean, I like a good grovel in a story, but I really didn't care if he did some groveling. It made it feel like he wasn't going to have to do much to get her back, like gain her trust back. And I just was not okay with it. So I'm not a fan of this. I really, really did not like it. And I was very disappointed that I did not like it because I was so excited to read this. If Sabrina Day writes something else in the future that has nothing to do with this series, because I think she's writing a second book to this book and then writing maybe a prequel, I think I saw that. So if she writes something not in this series, I might consider reading it again, but this was a total no for me. I could not stand it. Then I read Higher Love by Alexandria House. This is a contemporary romance. I don't know if this is a novella or if this is like just a shorter book. I listened to this one on audiobook, but this is about this girl. She is a travel blogger, and she just found out that her fiance cheated on her. So she's going to this place like to blog about it, and she meets this very handsome man there, and she decides to just have a like fling with him, kind of like a one-night stand, but I think it's extended over several days. And then they go back to their normal lives, and in doing so they actually end up running into each other again, and him wanting to pursue a relationship, and she's a little bit more reluctant, but they do end up pursuing a relationship together. I give this one 3 stars. I did really like the relationship between these two main characters. I liked the banter between them and the tension between them, and then their steamy scenes were really great. However, and this has been my problem with, I've read 1 or 2 other Alexandria House books. There's way too much drama in here, like X drama. So, and I really just don't care for that in my books. That's just a pet peeve of mine. And it just makes me roll my eyes and want to quit reading. So, and that's happened in some of her other books that I've read where there's extra, like other X drama. And this one, I've got 2 exes that are bringing drama. Her ex-fiance that cheated on her, there's stuff with like a potential baby mama that he's got a baby mama and blah blah blah, and then him as well is also having drama with an ex saying that she's pregnant, and it's just, I just didn't care for it. So if you don't mind that in your books, having a bunch of ex drama, you might really like this one, because like I said, the main love story and these 2 characters I did really like. I just couldn't deal with all the rest of it. So that may just be more of a me thing. Like I said, you may really enjoy this one. And then the last book that I read that I'm going to be talking about is going to be Not All Is Lost Part 1. This is the first book in the Not All Is Lost Omegaverse duet series. I think there's like 2 duets in this series. Anyway, this is by Elizabeth Knight. Of course, this is an Omegaverse story. This kind of sort of similar to Fleeing Fate. We have our heroine, and when she turns 16, she presents as an Omega, and her father locks her away in the basement until she turns 18. So she's in a very dark, abusive kind of situation with her father, and when she turns 18, he has sold her to somebody, and in his transport of her to this buyer, she ends up escaping and running to this care shelter, kind of like a homeless shelter that's set up, and this pack that runs the shelter ends up taking her home with them and taking care of her, and she ends up falling in love with the members of this pack. So I give this one 4 stars. I feel like developmentally wise and like writing wise, there wasn't a ton of depth to this book. So I feel like there could have been a little bit better with that, but I just kind of felt like this was a really enjoyable story. I enjoyed reading it. It was very sweet, which is kind of weird to say because it does have a lot of darker undertones to it, especially because she comes from this abuse from her father. But then when she's getting with these alphas, they are very caring towards her and patient with her. And I just really like seeing that. So when we do get to like the steam is very high because she does get with like most of the guys in this group. But it could use a little bit more development, but like I said, it was still enjoyable. Just little like nitpicky things that I have with it. But I did enjoy it. So there we go, everybody. Very, very rapid, quick wrap up there. That is going to be all of the books that I read. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to hit the thumbs up button. Leave a comment down below with some of the books that you read in February. What were some of your favorites? I love hearing from you guys. And subscribe if you haven't already. I really appreciate it. Otherwise, I will see you on the next one. Bye, guys.